I think it changes, this is me, because I'm trying, and I want to hear from you. But I think it changes because there's this concern that citizens are having about budget cuts, and at the same time a concern about tax increases. You got to remember, we're trying to meet some real significant needs in this community. Human services needs in an environment where there is not an appetite to raise taxes. In the past, we've avoided some tax rate increases because we've been able to rely upon growth revenue. We don't have that growth revenue. So how then do we balance this citizen concern about continued budget cuts against no tax rate increases? And the only way to do it is to be real clear on what your top priorities are. And I've learned some things from the critical need response fund. We brought a chart. This chart here kind of reflects all the services that Mecklenburg County operates. They're all up there. Detention services, sheriff operates, greenways, mental health, which means, mental illness programs, substance abuse programs, service for the disabled, libraries, park and recreation, which means greenways, recreation center, soccer fields, health and human services, DSS, our child protective services, adult protective services, domestic violence prevention, and certain homeless services. They're all represented up there in some way. And I asked for that chart to be done for one reason and one reason only. And that's as I come out and talk to people, so you can see the broad array of services that we have, but also to understand that for every service we have, there's a very vocal constituent, that will show up. Jim Martin, we didn't get funded for when the citizens several years ago voted not to do a bond referendum or voted against a bond referendum for schools. We set up a task force, the School Building Solutions Committee. The board came back and said, hey, manager, you figure out a way that we can rebuild public confidence and go forward with a bond referendum that be successful. And so one night I was laying in bed and I saw something with Governor Martin's name on it. I said, let me call him tomorrow and see if he'd be willing to head up this task force. And he said, yeah. I talked to him and he said, yes. One of the things he used to say, which always stayed with me, was in the business that we're in, people always want to protect their territory. Citizens want to protect what's important to them. You're going to advocate strongly for homeless services, and you're going to advocate strongly for food services. You're going to do that, and I understand that. And that's going to pit possibly the two of you against each other because you're dealing in an environment of limited resources. But he said that citizens would be, Brad would say, oh no, don't, you see that man behind that tree? Go tax him, but don't tax me. You see what I'm saying? The point I'm making is he wants his service protected to the expense of somebody else. And so what I need from you is to figure out how do we balance these competing demands and expectations upon that we're going to be confronted with going forward. I've got some ideas, but my ideas are not as important as your ideas are. The critical needs response group limited to 4 areas. And is that where Mecklenburg County is? Is there an amount of money that needs to be set aside by Mecklenburg County that's not appropriated for any specific purpose other than to say there's an amount of money that's here and it's going to be set aside for critical needs in this community so that we can prepare ourselves for the winter months of 2011, and we kind of have our own critical needs response fund, because I'm not so sure that Leon Levine is going to continue to, start that fund every year. And goodness gracious, if he doesn't start that fund again, how are we going to meet some of the needs? We are, Mecklenburg County, the Health and Human Agency for this community. By law, we are a subdivision of the state of North Carolina to help them carry out their responsibilities. The big elephant in the room is always education. It's always education. And our board is trying to deal with that issue from a performance/accountability standpoint. There are many people in this community who are saying, I looked at some data last week. We use a balanced scorecard. We try to manage objectively. We try to manage, people say run it like a business. Well, you can't run government like a business, but you can use some business principles to help you manage better. Because we just can't, a private business can turn away people at the door. They can deny service. They can send a product that comes on the loading dock that's not of quality, and they can send it back and not accept it. But social services can't turn people away. Health department can't turn people away. We have to take them off. The school system can't turn people away. So using those kinds of techniques helps us a great deal. I want to shut up. I'll start talking. I'll start preaching.
Well, you're in a room of great preachers.
But my point is a very simple one. We need your help. We need your help to help us decide on what you think the top priorities should be. I've already met with three different groups already. I think I did 4 different groups.
Who have you met with?
I met with the Faith,
Human Services and Faith Initiative,
and
area mental health providers.
The area mental health providers. I've met with them.
Young men, whatever.
Yeah, it's a group called the Empowerment. I met with them yesterday, so that just. I can remember all this other statistical data. But it's been 4 groups.
Okay. I just wonder which one the faith group was. Do you remember that?
Human Service and Faith Initiatives?
Yeah. It is a group of grassroots organizations that are getting together to do some asset mapping.
Right.
And to find out what organizations are doing that may duplicate what other organizations are doing so they can combine their efforts.
Since we're into anti-duplication, we wanted to think. I'm sorry.
I know that's that's your philosophy here.
Yeah.
So let me just.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to hear.
Yeah, I will. One of the issues, I headed up the United Way campaign several years ago, and that was the year that we raised $45 million. And I remember going out and talking to people, and the theme that I would use would be, and I don't know what the poverty rate is. I should know what that salary level is, income level, excuse me. But the figure that stood out to me, and I learned it from a poverty simulation we had done. 12% of people who live in Mecklenburg County, before we have this downturn in the economy, were at or below the poverty level. You do the math, roughly 900,000 people in Mecklenburg County. A little bit more than 100,000 people would be at or below the poverty level. So that would represent 1 in 6 people who live in the city of Charlotte. 1 out of every 6 people live in the city of Charlotte. However, if you made the assumption that everybody who lived within the city of Charlotte was above that poverty level, that 100,000 plus population that's left would represent the entire populations of the other 6 towns.